any of the rest of you been and think Atlanta is a better experience for your consumers than Memphis? Mr. Johnson?
Sir, I'm just not familiar with the Memphis airport. But after your discussion about
you
it,
and Mr. Anderson,
I'm going to see the Memphis airport as soon as I can.
Good, yeah, and you'll like it. It's not the fact
he likes the ribs, right?
Yeah,
He likes
the rendezvous, right?
The rendezvous and others. But you know, there's Memphis airport is small. It's easy to get around. It smells good. You smell ribs everywhere. Atlanta is just gigantic, and the only smell you get is maybe congestion and that. Will U.S. Airways, American, it'll be called American, Mr. Johnson, is there a likelihood that you would look into Memphis? If the whole thing's about competition. Now, are you going to leave Memphis to just be the stepchild of Delta, or would you look into coming in there and providing competition, as U.S. Airways has on the Memphis-Washington route?
I think both airlines serve Memphis now. We serve Memphis to a variety of our hubs. As you know from our testimony, our written testimony, the creation of the network that will come about by the new American Airlines will create opportunities to provide additional service to cities that we serve to our hubs. And we're hopeful that Memphis will be among that. But at this point in time, we haven't had the opportunity to plan or talk about that, but certainly Memphis will be on our list, sir.
Mr. Mitch, one of the things Mr. Anderson said or others said was that since the Memphis airport is so much better at the time airlines have to stay on the tarmac or just approach, that they save money on fuel. Is that accurate that would be an attraction to an airline to come to Memphis because of fuel costs sitting on the runway?
I think there's abundant evidence of that. All you have to do is look at the statements over time of Southwest Airlines. They will, stay away from any airport where expenses and charges are just a little bit too high for them. So it makes an impact on the decision making at the airlines for sure.
Dr. Winston, you supported the Delta Northwest merger. When you did so, did you take into consideration the horrific conditions that would result in a city like Memphis because of this merger?
No, I did not. I had a broader perspective on the merger. I qualified the danger of prospective assessments of mergers because what we know is after the merger there are so many changes in the network, entry and exit, that may relate to the merger, but in this case, as we know, probably had nothing to do with the merger because April 2008 was when we had our hearing and the merger went forward, and then we had the Great Recession. How one could isolate what the merger did versus the Great Recession is very, very difficult. So I would
the Great Recession
what we had our problems in Memphis would prove to that.
Shouldn't the Great Recession have made Memphis a better airport, as Mr. Mitchell says, because of the fact that you save money and you have less time, you're burning fuel, sitting there waiting to take off, like you do in Atlanta, and the Great Recession should have made Memphis a more profitable airline for Delta. You don't agree with that?
I think that the problem with a place like Memphis, as is other what we call not the largest hubs, is traffic. And again, if you're an airline, you want to fill your plane with people, you want to go where the people are.
Destination and origination. But nevertheless, it's become airports have become like Federal Express, except the airlines use people and Federal Express uses packages. And they're just places where you move people around. And Memphis is a good place. But let me ask you this, Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Winston thinks, Dr. Winston thinks it'd be good to have international competition. Do you want to have Air Shanghai be our primary carrier?
I personally don't fly them, but
You fly out of Memphis?
the notion that you can justify a merger based upon some future change in the marketplace, such as cabotage and open skies, is really not responsible. It's not going to happen in our lifetime. None of the 30 pilots or however many pilots are behind me want to wake up one morning to find themselves working for the Spanish government. It's too complicated, and it certainly is no justification for a merger.
Thank you, sir. I was in Raleigh-Durham recently, and I had a flight on U.S. Airways, and I had some time, and so I was able to look at the scheduling chart and saw that American flew, and American had really much better prices and much better deals on your frequent flyers going to Washington from Raleigh-Durham. Is that one of the 12 routes that you're talking about, or is that one of the some 100 routes that Mr. Mitchell mentions?
That's one of the 12 routes, sir.
And what will happen there?
I imagine that we'll retain a high level of service between Raleigh-Durham and Washington, D.C.
And will the price be U.S. Airways prices or American Airlines prices?
I don't know. We haven't talked about that at all. That's, as I said, we announced this merger 12 days ago, and those are things that we'll work on over the coming year as we.
How many of y'all aware? It's not just Memphis. It was St. Louis with TWA. It was Cincinnati. It's been Pittsburgh. Lots of hub cities who used those, put a lot of investment in their airports, and it was a business that's important to their communities, suffered because of mergers. Mr. Mitchell, do you see any of the hub cities that have served American or U.S. Airways seeing this similar fate as Memphis, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and maybe others have because of mergers?
Well, it's possible, and that's going to have to be a very fact-intensive analysis by DOJ, but certainly Philadelphia could be impacted, Charlotte could be impacted, Phoenix could be impacted because of the geography of adjacent hubs.
Thank you, Mr. Backus. I appreciate my time. Mr. Johnson, when you come to Memphis, let me know. We'll get some ribs and we'll see Fred Smith. Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Mr. Farenthold.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, when you started out, you mentioned some of the airlines had gone away. You skipped Braniff, a great Texas airline I grew up with. And I mentioned that because it really looks like the only thing consumers in the U.S. are looking at on airlines right now is